The previous it girl, Tesla, you are still short on, but using options, yes?
We are. We're short. We're short the stock, and we just think it's ridiculously overvalued.
Right, but betting against it has not worked out yet. What do you think would prompt...
I've noticed.
Right. What do you think would prompt the market to be convinced of your take that Tesla is just a car company, nothing more?
Well, again, the Tesla story keeps changing, right? Every few months, the Tesla faithful trot out it's batteries, it's robo-taxis, now it's AI. Mm-hmm. And I'm a little bit bemused, having followed the company as long as we've been following it, that Tesla sort of admitted just recently in its full self-driving effort that it had been pursuing sort of the wrong avenue for 7 years, and that it's now going to a different type of software development for the next iteration of full self-driving beta. And so I'm just sort of wondering, this technological leader just told you that they basically were doing the wrong thing for 7 years.
Yeah.
Now, my problem with that is they've been selling it as a product. They've been selling full self-driving since 2016. It doesn't exist. And so, this is, but this is a company that has gotten a wide berth from regulators.
Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to my newest patron, Jay. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. What we all just heard has to be some of the most egregious misinformation I've heard in recent memory. I mean, is he serious? Doing the wrong thing for 7 years when the truth is it was actually all of that work over 7 years that's allowed them to make this huge leap forward. This type of thing should be illegal because there are innocent bystanders who aren't in our Tesla bubble that will hear this and go along with it and then never invest in Tesla and miss out on the opportunity of a lifetime. He then goes on to say FSD does not exist. Well, I think the 400,000 people that are currently using the product would disagree. And third, to say that Tesla has been given a wide berth from regulators, insinuating that Tesla has freedom to do whatever they want, is just factually incorrect. In reality, Tesla is the most scrutinized automaker because they're pushing forward technology the most, as they should be. But everything out of this man's mouth right here was just egregiously inaccurate and misleading. So if you have any family or friends that are watching this type of content, you need to make sure they're not getting fleeced. I'll be honest, this is a pretty weird article for this update on Giga Mexico. It's expected that today, Tesla will deliver the document that makes the start of the Gigafactory official. This document would be the letter of intent to formalize the installation and startup of Giga Mexico. However, they're still saying the construction date has not yet been defined. An unnamed source said today, Friday, they gave us the letter. They told me nothing can be said until they have the letter that makes the end official, aka the start of the Gigafactory. On an Instagram story, the state president shared that adjustments, access, and mobility works will begin to be carried out. On those stories, he said, my friends and colleagues from Tesla are very happy because they have their Gigafactories in Austin and Fremont, and they'll already have direct flights when they come here to settle. Let's start with everything. The issue of water, it's treated water, of the train tracks, adaptations and access to the road, the highway to the plant. So pure good news. We are hitting with everything. And on Monday, the governor said he hosted some executives from Tesla to agree on the startup of the plant. Part of this article is trying to highlight these new routes and direct flights from different cities in the United States to Monterey ahead of this factory. The governor said the United States Aviation Agency has already returned Category 1 to Mexico, and it'll consolidate Nuevo Leon as a regional airport hub, which will reportedly eventually lead to more flights to places like Austin and San Francisco. To clarify all of that, it looks like the governor is confirming they'll begin construction of roads for Giga Mexico. Soon is certainly relative, but it sounds like things are definitely happening and we should see some developments in the weeks ahead. YouTube channel Muddy Ruts, this video will be linked below, but we got a scoop on potential Cybertruck deliveries.
Like most folks, I'd only seen pictures of the Cybertruck. Seeing it in person, I have to say, it's a very impressive vehicle. I don't have any plans to purchase one, but I can definitely see why it would be a very popular vehicle. According to the Tesla guy, deliveries of the Cybertruck should start in October. When we asked him about the price, he wasn't sure what the final price was going to be.
The Cybertruck reservation tracker stats have been making its rounds the past 24 hours, reportedly over 2 million pre-orders now. I just wanted to remind everybody this is totally unofficial, has nothing to do with Tesla directly. Just in case you like nerding out on this stuff, I'll have the tracker document linked below. Looking at some data from Troy Tesla, we get an update on Tesla unwinding the delivery wave from Giga Shanghai. If we compare Q2 of 2022, only 12% of Tesla's deliveries to Europe happened in the first 2 months of the quarter. Fast forward to Q2 of this year, that number has jumped to 48%. So most recently, we have roughly 50% of Tesla's deliveries in Europe happening in the first 2 months of a quarter, and the other 50%, of course, then in that third month. And remember, Tesla unwinding these delivery waves should, in theory, result in lower transportation costs, lower logistics costs, not having to pay extra for that expedited shipping. Ray for Tesla shared a Chinese article saying Mercedes is reportedly pausing EV production at 2 plants in Beijing due to sluggish sales and inventory buildup. I looked for more information on this one, but it seems like no American sources have picked up on this story yet. But translating the picture that Ray shared, the 2 new major factories of Beijing-Benz stopped production. The parking lot was full of unsellable new cars. Just an anecdote to reinforce what we've been talking about all week, how some of these German brands are really struggling to sell EVs in the Chinese market. We got a new LinkedIn post on the Tesla Semi from Dave Mullaney. He said, a big question in truck electrification has always been whether electric trucks can be viable in high uptime slip seat applications where multiple drivers take turns driving the same truck one after the next. For quite some time, I was also skeptical, not anymore. The combination of megawatt level charging and battery packs that are probably close to a megawatt hour, that's not officially disclosed, clearly can do the job. PepsiCo's Tesla Semi number 3 just did 1,600 miles in a little less than 48 hours. It's really the charging that unlocks this. The early morning charge on day 3 gets 75% state of charge in about an hour, from 5% to 80%. However, upon reviewing the chart, it was actually from 12% to 80%. Either way though, that's pretty remarkable. This isn't just enabled by the 750 kilowatt charger, there's that number again, but also the ability of the battery to take a high power charge for a long period of time, meaning the charging curve on the Tesla Semi from this Run on Less event so far has been really good. I think another blessing in disguise for the Tesla Semi production ramp delay will be the ability for Tesla to work with some of these utilities to figure out how they're going to handle this demand from the grid over the next 5 to 10 years. This megawatt level charging, especially if we want to do it at scale, is going to take some time in planning to figure out how to do it well, not to mention building the infrastructure to do it. But the takeaway, in just the first few days of this Run on Less event, the Tesla Semi is certainly turning heads and also converting some skeptics. I was able to find this article and we got some comments from the executive director of this Run on Less event. First, Class 8 EVs do have a pass on going 2,000 pounds over the 80,000 limit, which Tesla indicates the Semi will use every bit of, but we still don't know the official weight of the Tesla Semi. But the director said with Pepsi and Tesla, we're tracking the beverage shipments. It's impressive, a fairly heavy haul at nearly 80,000 pounds. It goes to one location and drops off soda, but maybe picks up some waters, goes to another location to drop off waters, but picks up Gatorade. He said, we don't really know the payload for any given truck on any given day, but NACFE has verified these are fairly fully loaded when they leave and stay fairly loaded. They're not out there gaming Run on Less. He added, due to the extra weight of the Semi, that run yesterday is with less beverages than if it was a diesel truck, but not much less, and likely the shipments are adjusted to keep the total weight under that 82,000 pound mark. He said the Semis have an advantage in charging on its own proprietary chargers, which aren't yet widespread. It charges incredibly fast, 2 to 4 times faster than any other available heavy truck. And yes, Tesla still has challenges ahead with a Semi. They need to get to volume production. They need to work with the utilities for megawatt level charging. They need to prove these statistics in poor weather because so far this Run on Less event has seen pretty temperate, cool temperatures. All of that said, he still seemed to think this would open up a wide variety of tangible use cases for trucking, even rivaling diesel. So far, the answer to this question seems to be yes. Today from Benchmark, the U.S. Department of Defense has approved $110 million million in grants to increase domestic lithium and nickel supply. Lithium miner Albemarle has received $90 million to continue developing its Kings Mountain mine in North Carolina, while nickel-focused Talon Metals was awarded $20.5 million for its Tamarack project in Minnesota. And if you've been following the channel, you'll know both of these companies have supply deals with Tesla. The United States currently accounts for only 1% of global lithium supply, which makes it heavily dependent on other countries to meet its own demand. Albemarle will use these funds to continue developing its Kings Mountain mine. The company is aiming for the hard rock lithium asset to be operational in 2026, which initially should provide enough LCE for 1.2 million EVs per year. And Talon Metals will use the funds to continue exploration activities in Minnesota and Michigan. A nice little boost for some desperately needed onshoring. So yes, the UAW strikes have indeed begun. However, it's not like every single worker for all of the big three is now not working. It's targeted at specific plants. Right now, it's 3 plants, one from each automaker. One plant in Michigan that makes the Bronco SUV for Ford, one in Missouri that makes the Chevy Colorado for GM, and one in Ohio that builds Jeep Wrangler SUVs for Stellantis. This strategy of targeting individual plants is designed to methodically cut production of profitable vehicles while minimizing the impact on the UAW's strike fund. So right now, the strike is limited to these 3 factories. Today, Mary Barr said, "I'm extremely disappointed and frustrated. This is a strike that did not need to happen." Clearly, the workers disagree.
The union is demanding, asking for a 40% wage increase over 4 years. They're asking for that in part because they say CEOs like yourself, leading the big three, are making those kind of pay increases over the course of the last 4 years. You've seen a 34% pay increase in your salary. You make almost $30 million. Why should your workers not get the same type of pay increases that you're getting leading the company?
Well, if you look at compensation, my compensation, 92% of it is based on performance of the company. I think one of the strong aspects of the way our compensation for our represented employees is designed is not only are we putting a 20% increase on the table, we have profit sharing. So when the company does well, everyone does well. And for the last several years, that's resulted in record profit sharing for our represented employees. And I think you have to look at the whole compensation package, not only 20% increase in gross wage, but also the profit sharing aspect of it, world-class health care, and there's several other features. So we think we have a very competitive offer on the table, and that's why we want to get back there and get this done.
But if you're getting a 34% pay increase over 4 years and you're offering 20% to employees right now, do you think that's fair?
Well, I think when you look at the overall structure and the fact that 92% is based on performance, and you look at what we've been doing of sharing in the profitability when the company does well, I think we've got a very compelling offer on the table, and that's the focus I have right now.
How much damage would that do to the bottom line if you were to say, sure, we'll give you 40%?
If we signed up for the UAW's request, instead of making money and distributing $75,000 in profit sharing in the last 10 years, we would have lost $15 billion and gone bankrupt by now. The average pay would be nearly $300,000 fully fringed for a 4-day work week. There is no way.
Per employee, per UAW employee.
Yeah. This is our fully tenured school teacher in the U.S. makes $66,000. Someone from the military or fireman makes mid-50,000. This is 4, 5 times, 6 times what they make. There's no way we can be sustainable as a company. That's why we put our proposal in 2 weeks ago to say, look, you want us to choose bankruptcy over supporting our workers? Here's our proposal. Let's work through this. We've heard nothing.
To give some context, there was a 40-day strike against GM back in 2019, the longest since the 1970s. It cost the company about $3.6 billion in EBIT. The strike dented revenue up and down the automotive supply chain. Elon chimed in on the matter saying, "Walter spent a lot of time with me in meetings, but much less time walking the factory floor. Tesla and SpaceX factories have a great vibe. We encourage playing music and having some fun. Very important for people to look forward to coming to work. This makes me think of the DJ on the train at Giga Berlin, which I love. We pay more than the UAW, by the way, but performance expectations are also higher. Quite a few of our factory techs who work on the line have become millionaires over the years from company stock grants. More context though, so far in all, fewer than 13,000 of the UAW's 145,000 members walked off the job, which is less extensive than had been expected 2 days ago. Of course, a full strike or walkout is still indeed on the table. It's a very fluid situation.
John Ford has just announced that it is laying off approximately 600 workers at its Michigan assembly plant. That is the plant where one of the UAW strikes is taking place. We should point out that that strike does not shut down the entire plant. There is still body construction and stamping work that is going on there. But because those employees need some of the parts that the UAW works with and provides to the stamping operation, the body construction operation, and they cannot do that, Ford says it has no choice but to tell those workers they are now laid off.
Of the 26 EV brands in the January to July data, Rivian was number 8 with 2.8% of the US EV market, Lucid was 18 with 0.6%, and VinFast 23 with 170 total registrations. From Experian's registration data, Rivian's 2,750 in July for the R1T and R1S were slightly up with its monthly average of 2,596 for the first half of the year. Excluding the EDV for Rivian in the first 7 months of the year, they registered 18.3 thousand vehicles. Lucid added 348 Air registrations in July, bringing its 7-month total to 3.7 thousand. In a new interview with RJ Scringe, we got some updates on how they're going to save money on costs. Rivian is planning to update the hardware in its EVs next year under a program internally called Peregrine. Translation, they're looking to change the ECUs or the electronic control units in its cars. By far the number one cost saving opportunity, the ECU consolidation. The ability to consolidate ECUs is not a few $100s, we're talking multi-$1,000 savings to move to, a fraction of the number of computers in cars we've historically seen. And this just highlights how Rivian really does get it, what they need to do to be successful. Rivian has developed its own ECUs and software. This hardware upgrade will roll out to R1 vehicles next year, and the result will be a reduced number of ECUs and improved efficiency. We have the strong conviction that owning the entirety of the electronic stack, so all the computers in the vehicle, and then owning the software stack that sits on them, creates an opportunity to have a much more holistic customer experience and user interface experience. He said a lot of OEMs will claim to have the ability to do OTA updates, but they're relatively infrequent and they tend to be very surface level, like clock moves on the screen and the color changes on the screen, but they're not fundamentally changing the way the dynamics are in the car or the way the sensor stack is being utilized, a key distinction. RJ said the company plans to reduce the number of ECUs in its vehicles by 60% and the wiring harness length by 25%. Rivian doing its best Tesla impersonation, good for them. Looking at the Model Y configurator, you'll now see we're down to 2 options, the long range and performance. So the all-wheel drive standard range 4680 structural pack Model Y from Giga, Texas is now no longer available. The question becomes, will this be a temporary removal or is this going to be permanent? And look, a lot of people right now are saying this is because Tesla needs those 4680 cells for Cybertruck production. And that could absolutely be the case. I just want to be a voice that also says it could be any number of factors. One other example, maybe Tesla just wants to streamline the manufacturing and that all-wheel drive variant was never a high volume seller. So removing it off the list altogether, then Tesla can focus on 2 models, which by the way will also most likely have higher margins. But now seems like a great time to revisit the Q2 call and that 4680 cell update. In Texas, 4680 cell production increased 80% Q2 over Q1, and the team surpassed that 10 million cells produced there in Texas. Their focus on yield reduced their scrap bill by 40% quarter over quarter, and that resulted in a 25% reduction in cost of goods sold for the cells. Here in Texas, they're preparing to launch their Cybertruck cell, which is 10% higher energy density than the current production. That was accomplished through process and mechanical design optimization. As we scale Cybercell production through the end of the year and early next, we should be in a comfortable place on a cost per cell. The Cybercell is at our expectations on a like-for-like electrochemistry basis. We're yet to integrate silicon or in-house cathode production, both reviewed on Battery Day, which do bring significant further energy density and cost improvements, but that's a topic for another day. One last quick word on 4680s, because on the internet I see people getting it wrong all the time. Right now, Tesla's main focus with the 4680 production is just that, higher volume production and more supply. They're not laser focused on the energy density right now. All of those improvements will come with time as they increase the supply. Right now, Tesla is not focused on having the most energy dense cell in the world like today. They're just focused on getting all of these lines up and running, testing different things, and getting that volume going. Those energy density improvements will come with time. On X, Ghost and Skater said, let me guess, Kato either converted to making the Cybercell or an even newer version for testing, and Cleaner Watt, who seemingly has some sources, said, wow, you nailed it. Video may be on his channel once you see this one live. So perhaps Kato Road and eventually Giga Texas will be transitioning to this new Cybertruck cell. So for now, it would definitely make sense to focus all 4680 production for this new Gen 2 cell to be for the Cybertruck and use those 2170s for the Model Y long range and performance. We won't stay here, but just so the few of you know, if you do toy around with service mode, there are now service mode specific release notes with 2023.32. The other day we talked about Tesla installing its 50,000th supercharger. Well, we got some pictures of it and it looks awesome. Just wanted to pass along these photos because they looked really good. And it had a little commemorative plaque to boot. The internet came together to find out this one is located in Roseville, California. If your Tesla wall connector is a Gen 3 or higher, you're now able to add it to your app in the United States. If you're not seeing this option, try to update your app first. It's out of stock already, but in case you want to get notifications, Tesla is now offering a powered Liftgate retrofit for $800 for the Model 3. This would be for build versions prior to 2021. The cost does include shipment to your preferred Tesla service center and installation. Tesla is testing the waters for a new bond offering. This would be about $1.8 billion of a securitization of its EV leases, deals they've done before. However, this could be the biggest deal they've done since they started doing this back in 2014. We don't yet know the pricing. It'll probably be finalized next week. Why would Tesla do this? It's pretty simple. They can bundle up all of these EV leases on the books, sell them, use those proceeds to then do that same thing all over again, make new EV leases, bundle them up, sell them, repeat. The first Tesla center in Thailand is now open. This one is in Bangkok. Per the usual, Tesla seems to be moving to rare earth-free motors at the right time. Malaysia will now develop export ban policies on rare earth elements to avoid exploitation and loss of resources, guaranteeing maximum returns. China has done something similar, and they accounted for 70% of rare earth exports in 2022. Here we have a fact of the week. In 2020, the average household electricity consumption for electric vehicles was 2,363 kilowatt hours, which is less than several other household appliances. Specifically, it was less than water heating, space heating, and air conditioning. So if your friends or family think charging an EV at home is going to exponentially increase their electricity bill, you can tell them these stats. One of the most exciting things for me to watch with this autonomous transition will be the way it gives so many people their autonomy and freedom back. On that note, Kyle Vogt shared on X he's excited to introduce the Cruise WAV, the world's first self-driving wheelchair accessible vehicle. They're gearing up for closed course testing next month and aim to start with a pilot next year. Indiana could well become the most favored location for Subaru to establish an EV production site. The CEO said the time to make a decision is coming close. Hope you guys have a wonderful and a safe weekend. Please like the video. If you did, you can find me on X linked below, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.